Mass Effect is a series known for its phenomenal characters. It's a series that remains iconic because it gives those characters time. As Commander Shepard, you're constantly spending time with these well-written, fleshed-out people, either on the ship or on their loyalty missions. When people think about what they love in Mass Effect, it is these main companions, these squadmates. Characters like Tali, Garrus, Liara, Javik. These are squadmates that are well written and that people have come to genuinely care about throughout the course of these 3 games. And then there's Jacob Taylor. Mass Effect 2's Jacob Taylor is considered by many, including myself, to be one of the worst RPG party members of all time. Why is this, you may ask? Jacob is a bland soldier. His entire personality is just soldier. Whenever you try to talk to him in your optional conversations, he either never opens up or he shuts Shepard down.
I'm interested in getting to know you better.
Already? I'm not big on forcing these talks, Shepard. Let's do this later.
Throughout the course of Mass Effect 2, he is constantly giving you bad advice, which, if followed, leads to several party members dying in the game's penultimate suicide mission. On top of all of that, he's just kind of a prick. But it's the worst kind of character who's a prick. One that's rude, but has no interesting backstory or reason to be rude to Shepard. On top of all of that, if you're female Shepard and you decide you like Jacob enough to romance him, he ultimately cheats on you in Mass Effect 3. He says something stupid like, "Well, Shepard, you were gone for 6 months and your first love is always gonna be the Normandy." A spaceship!
I think we both know. The Normandy's your real love.
A literal spaceship. Look, I won't belabor the point here. Jacob Taylor sucks, and he is noticeably worse because he's surrounded by all of these phenomenal, interesting characters in Mass Effect 2. But today we're gonna fix this. I am going to present 3 different ideas to hypothetically redo Jacob Taylor. These ideas help him to become a more interesting character throughout the Mass Effect trilogy. I typically hate these internet rewrite videos because hindsight truly is 2020. When you're writing and delivering a product, things that seem obvious to the audience may not always seem clear to the creator. These rewrite videos on YouTube are always some guy that comes on and is like, "Look how smart I am. I have better ideas than the writers of the thing I love. Checkmate, developers. I am smarter than your product. All it took was unlimited time, energy, and effort, and I wrote something better than you." What a lot of these rewrite videos miss frequently is that when you're creating something under pressure, sometimes it does lead to bad choices. And no amount of time or energy or creative thoughts can fix this bad writing because of the circumstances in which the art was created. That said, let's completely ignore that and rewrite Jacob in Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 3 has a legendarily bad antagonist. Throughout Mass Effect 3's runtime, you fight the Reapers, but also a pro-human organization called Cerberus. Kai-Leng is a cyborg ninja sent by Cerberus to hunt Shepard and their crew. This character is legendary for just being a cringe lord. I mean, his character design looks like somebody's bad OC, and I kind of love him. He looks like a rejected G.I. Joe from the 90s with his ponytail and eye mask and sword. But all the problems with Kai-Leng aside, the reason why this character objectively doesn't work in Mass Effect 3 is because you have no history with him. He's just some random dude that works for the Elusive Man and shows up at random points. And I get it, because the Elusive Man looks like a high school principal, it's not like you can have a boss fight with him. But in order for Kai-Leng to work in Mass Effect 3's narrative, you need that history. You need some sort of rivalry. Enter Jacob Taylor. What if instead of being a random person, Kai-Leng was Jacob Taylor? Think about it. Jacob is a loyal soldier through and through. What if after the Collector base gets destroyed in Mass Effect 2, he buys into the Elusive Man's ideas of controlling the Reapers and upgrading humanity with advancements? This could serve as a great foil to Shepard, as you have another character that is making a case for control, making the player question if destroy really is the best option. A character you have history with. A character that, like you, was an Alliance soldier through and through. This would also work because it plays into the meta-narrative that the audience hates Jacob. Suddenly, their hatred is founded because that boring character in Mass Effect 2 is suddenly opposing you. This would make moments like Thessia in the Citadel attack hit harder because you're being betrayed by someone who was on your crew. And maybe even if you did romance him, it becomes this tragic story of how you're trying to convince Jacob to come back. And maybe he even shows some hesitation as a result. They could even go as far as resurrecting him if he dies in 2's suicide mission, rebuilding him with cybernetics, making him even less human. Maybe in that scenario, rewrite Jacob to where he blames you for his death, and it's harder to pass his dialogue checks if he dies on the mission in 2. All of this would be interesting because it takes the core of Jacob's character, being a soldier who just wants to do the right thing, and kind of turns it on his head and makes him an antagonist. By making Jacob a central antagonist in 3, you have way more interesting opportunities for role-playing options. And he becomes legitimately interesting as a foil for Shepard, someone who illustrates the elusive man's desire to upgrade humanity. And they could even go as far as making the player question if they're doing the right thing, something that doesn't really work in Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect is a series of memorable alien characters surrounded by a bunch of humans that are either interesting or mind-numbingly boring. James Vega is a muscle meathead introduced in Mass Effect 3, and he looks like he is straight out of Gears of War, coming from that 360 era where everyone was yacked. I mean, look at the hams on this guy! James Vega is awesome. He is this dumb meathead that at times can be very funny and sensitive.
Okay, maybe it's not conditioning exactly. Maybe it's just the condition of one James Vega.
And he is voiced phenomenally by Freddie Prinze Jr., you know, Fred from the Scooby-Doo movie. Problem is, James Vega is a character that gets introduced late in a series of phenomenal characters that have a ton of screen time. We don't get to see James Vega until the beginning of Mass Effect 3. So you have this very interesting, funny character that has to play catch-up the entire time they're on screen. But what if we kicked Jacob to the curb entirely? What if we introduced James Vega earlier in Mass Effect 2? Honestly, you wouldn't need to change James all that much. James Vega's story is all about a failed mission he led to stop the Collectors, Mass Effect 2's main nemesis. This story is all about James Vega overcoming his trauma when he lost his squad on this mission against the Collectors. His arc is about learning that sometimes when you have your own command and do everything right, you will still lose people, and how you live with that. This entire story arc could easily slot into 2's main narrative in place of Jacob. So think about it. Maybe after this event, where James Vega loses his entire squad to a Collector attack, Vega is so disgusted he decides to join Cerberus. Keep in mind, in Mass Effect 2, the Alliance isn't doing anything to stop Collector attacks, and Cerberus is openly taking on the Collectors. Maybe for James Vega, this is a means to an end and why he joins up. Fundamentally, you can keep the story the same. You would find James Vega as a regular soldier on the Cerberus base when you wake up from the Lazarus Project, just like you do Jacob. You would relate to him because you're both Alliance officers that failed and ended up joining Cerberus as that means to an end. James even mentions offhandedly he has an absent father. You could literally take Jacob's loyalty mission about finding his father, you know, the only well-written part, and slap James in there instead. In our rewrite, it's James Vega's father who is the bad person and betrayed the crew of the Hugo Gernsback. One thing I really like about this rewrite is also we have the opportunity to make the Arrival DLC more interesting. Mass Effect 2's Arrival DLC is a solo mission where Commander Shepard tries to stop the Reaper invasion of the Milky Way. In a nutshell, Admiral Hackett asks you to go into a base alone and save a scientist, and then hijinks ensue. What if instead of it just being Commander Shepard, James accompanied you on this? Admiral Hackett asks both of you to handle the mission because you're ex-Alliance and you're defecting from Cerberus. This not only would make Arrival more interesting, as you would have a squad mate with you to kind of bounce ideas off of, it gives us more time with James and makes him feel less out of left field when he finally appears in Mass Effect 3. Not only would you have the connection of leaving the Alliance for Cerberus and then coming back, but you would have the connection of making the difficult choice of killing the Batarians, and you both have to go back to Earth and face the music. This makes for a far more compelling character than Jacob, and it makes the muscle meathead that I love that much better. I kept this one for last because this fact is like the "did you know Aragorn stubbed his toe" fact of Mass Effect. But originally, in the planning stages of Mass Effect 2, there was supposed to be a Batarian engineer squadmate. The design doc describes him as the Batarian gearhead. The enabling mission would have the player learning the location of an infamous Batarian terrorist. He's an expert in technology and hacking, but when Commander Shepard finds them, they discover that he isn't actually a terrorist and he has no ill will towards humanity. The design doc goes on to say that this character would have essentially been a nerd, someone who's meek and shy, and uncomfortable with combat and confrontation. However, the Batarian gearhead is an incredible tech. He wants to live a quiet, ordinary life, but he's so smart, he will never be seen as normal or ordinary. This is fascinating because this is antithetical to every single Batarian we meet in Mass Effect. Within the trilogy, the Batarians are an alien race. They're portrayed as pieces of shit, with their entire civilization running on piracy, human trafficking, and slavery. The Batarians suck so much, it's almost a cartoonish degree where people make memes about being space racist to Batarians. Within the lore, they kind of try to justify their dickishness, as in the Codex it explains the Batarians found a dead Reaper, and this is somehow mind controls the Batarians into doing evil things. But that explanation sucks. It really is just an excuse for bad, one-dimensional writing. So, what if we replace Jacob with a Batarian engineer? We'll call him Bocage. Well, this would do a couple of different things. First, it gives the player someone to sympathize with, making the cartoonishly evil Batarians appear multidimensional. Second, it allows the audience to learn about the Batarians through contrast. In learning about Bocage, the Batarian, we learn about how he is different from the average Batarian. And from those differences, we can glean onto Batarian culture, what their values are like, what their society is like. From there, you could empathize with the Batarians, so our decision and arrival to, kill 300,000 of them actually means something. Finally, replacing Jacob here would be far more interesting because, well, Mass Effect has too many humans. Part of the appeal of sci-fi is to explore our own culture through the rules and morals of other alien cultures. When we look at the Turians, we're analyzing our own militaristic tendencies. When we look at the Quarians, we reflect on the dangers of reckless technology development. These are just a few examples of how we can look at fictional alien races and reflect on them. It provides us with insight, relatability of those races because we can see how they are human. With our Batarian squadmate, we could reflect on our own society's ills by comparing it to a Batarian view. Frankly, having another boring soldier guy is just boring and does not cause the audience to think about anything. Jacob out, Bocage in. In a series with so many well-developed characters, Jacob Taylor feels like an anomaly. I mean, Mass Effect has some simple human characters, but they're still memorable. Kaidan is a golden retriever himbo with a heart of gold. Ashley is a military brat that has to confront her own prejudices. Zahid is a merc that gets the job done no matter the cost. My point is, every other quote-unquote boring human character on the cast has at least something going on, but not Jacob. Jacob Taylor is a fumble of a character. A poorly thought out, paper-thin, boring military man that adds nothing of value to the story. A man that BioWare didn't know what to do with, so he just cheats on you and knocks up some random broad.
And you and her?
We're having a baby, Shepard.
Wow. Congratulations.
Wasn't exactly planned, but I'm looking forward to it.
And to add insult to injury, he is the series' only black squadmate, whose loyalty mission involves finding his absent father who left when he was young. Like, come on, BioWare! In a series as strong as Mass Effect, it's not a big deal, but ultimately, Jacob Taylor stands out like a boring sore thumb. But hey, maybe bad party members are sometimes a good thing. Maybe they allow us to realize how great our favorite characters are and still make spaces feel full and inhabited. Or maybe I have no idea how to end this video. Jacob, in the vents with ya! Jacob! Remember, this channel is home to stinky opinions. Love what you saw? Hate what you saw? Drop a comment down below. And why not subscribe if you enjoyed the show? Thanks for me, Stanky, the CEO.